To Growth in Esports, Navigating the Space as Women. This panel is for PAX Online. We're really excited to have you here with us, and we're all going to do a round of introductions, so let's get started. Hi, I'm Cristina Amaya. I am an event strategist. I'm also the founder of Latinx in Gaming, and I'm also on the board of directors of the IGDA. I focused most of my time and energy on Latinx and gaming, and this is my first full-time foray into esports. I've done a lot of smaller esports events, things on the side as an event manager, but never full-time. And I'm so excited to be here at Team Liquid, and I'm so excited to be with everybody in this call.
Hey everyone, my name is Erin Ashley Simon. I do hosting work in the esports and gaming world. Currently, I am a host of the show called The Download on Ven 24/7 Gaming Entertainment Network. Before that, Cheddar Esports. But I've been in the media world for like 10 plus years, worked in traditional sports, worked in music media. And so a lot of that I bring to the table when it comes to esports. And also, I'm a host for a podcast for Evil Geniuses as well as Cloud9.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Schneider. I'm the current partnerships account manager at the Houston Outlaws. Previously, I was a social media manager at Genji Esports and at Women of Esports. My previous experience is in gaming and entertainment with Rooster Teeth and South by Southwest. And I am 1 year into my esports venture and previously collegiate doing Longhorn Gaming at the University of Texas.
Hey guys, my name is Sabrina Wong, current culture program specialist over here at Evil Geniuses. Previously, I've been at 100 Thieves and Immortals for both team management and events. And I've also been a Blizzard intern in 2017 for their esports department. On the side, I also run this little apparel company called Killsteel, which is an all inclusive apparel company for esports and gaming. So that's all about me.
Hey guys, I'm Heather Wicks. I first came into the esports scene in 2018. I joined the Los Angeles Valiant as their social media, but I came to Team Liquid's One Up Studios as a video editor last year. So I've been with Team Liquid as an editor for a year now, and I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you, everybody, for your introductions. It's so nice to have you on the panel. So let's start with our first topic, kind of the beginning. Everybody, and chime in whenever you want. Feel free to just start. What got you interested in esports? Why are you here?
Well, I can say I've been a gamer my whole life. I played Super Nintendo from the beginning, and then I had like 4 PlayStation 2s because I kept breaking them. But I didn't really get into esports until I started playing League of Legends. That was the first game that really had an esport that I got into. And I loved League of Legends. I played it all the time. So like naturally esports came to me. And yeah, I've been like participating in like collegiate, like going to esports events, and then now working in the space. So
Yeah, for me personally, I got into esports kind of similar to Heather. I've been a gamer all my life, especially on the PC. I was playing a lot of browser games. And when it came to high school, League of Legends was kind of the new hot thing. And I was able to play that. And what really got me interested in esports was my first esports event, which was in 2013, MLG Anaheim. And it was an amazing experience. I got to see TSM and CLG play live for their base race, and it was insane. But something that really struck me at that time was that with thousands of people in this venue over at Anaheim Convention Center, there was only about 5 or 6 women I saw during the entire event. Yes, I did count. And since then, I realized that, hey, there needs to be a change here. And I knew that I wanted to get involved, and I didn't know where I fit in the space. But since that event, I knew that I wanted to be in esports.
I think for me, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
You sure? Okay. Yeah, for me, what got me interested in esports? I mean, I used to follow esports here and there before. There's a period of time when I was in college, I really wasn't able to do anything except playing soccer, but I would follow a lot of the FGC scene because I had some friends that were really into it. And then I also realized and started noticing that there were certain people in the music industry and other areas that were getting more involved. But I've been a gamer pretty much all my life. And I think that for me, what got me interested is like that intersection of culture that we're starting to see even more within the esports scene, in addition to the competition. And for me, as well as someone who brought those passions together, obviously I started with the broadcast side, but I really wanted to dive more into it as a broadcaster because I felt like I wanted to see more people like myself in this scene, especially on the broadcast front. And so, just that passion of gaming and culture, and as well as representation for me, was really what got me interested in jumping in and really getting involved in it from a career standpoint.
So my story of how I got into esports, it's similar to Heather. I've been a gamer all my life. Pokemon actually taught me how to reading the Pokedexes and stuff. And I've been playing World of Warcraft almost all my life since first grade. And so, fast forward to college, I came in undeclared, not really knowing what I wanted to do, but having a passion for gaming. And I believe it was, 2018, you got to see the development of the Overwatch League. I was a huge supporter of Overwatch coming out. I was really excited because Blizzard was making the game. They made World of Warcraft. And so it was really cool to see them create a game and then create an esports out of it, or an esport event out of it. And you got to see names like Ninja, and you got to see eventually Apex Legends come out. And I wasn't really seeing a lot of women in the scene, and I realized I can actually make this passion of mine in gaming a career. And so from then on, I started getting involved in my collegiate esports group, Longhorn Gaming. I started taking internships that are more gaming and entertainment focused, and then eventually I landed my first job in esports. So Overwatch League was kind of my venture into esports.
Oh my God, your stories are so cool. Kind of similar to everyone here. I didn't see women, right? Like, I didn't see women at the broadcast. I didn't see women behind the scenes. I didn't see women professional players. And anytime you saw women trying to play professionally, they were shot down pretty hard, or they were considered a gimmick, etc. And I was like, there's no way. Like, that's not fair to us. Like, that's not fair at all. Like, we are good at games. We can be here. We can do just as good of a show as men. And so for me, it was so important to get involved and be part of this space as a woman. And so I vowed to myself that at some point in my career, I would work in esports. And so I'm excited that it's now. But yeah, that's great. Does anybody have any other points to add to this? Anything else about starting out? Okay, cool. So, org loyalty. So, how did you join the org that you're with now? Any thoughts, questions, including Ven, Erin?
Yeah, I'll get started real quick. So, I've been on a lot of teams in my lifetime, and I've understood that like different organizations have different strategies when coming into the esports space. And what Evil Geniuses I think has done really well is not only place a lot of value within diversity and inclusion, which is something that I've always worked for within my career, but also a sense of structure and context, within the esports space. I think a lot of teams burn out quite fast because they don't have that kind of structure, you know, in their foundation because they come purely endemic within the space. But EG is a little bit different. It has a sense of legacy because it's been around for over 20 years, and it also has a lot of backing behind it, and the staff that really is at Evil Geniuses has never ceased to inspire me to be a little bit better and push myself a little bit harder.
Anyone want to go?
Well, I could say it. So when I first graduated, I graduated with bachelor's in cinema, and I knew I wanted to go into post production because I love video editing. My whole life, I've been a video editor. So my first job was at a fashion company, an athletics fashion company, and I had worked there for like 7 months, and that was right around the time that the Overwatch League started. And I was big into Overwatch. I was playing every day, and I was really, really excited because I'm from the Midwest and my whole family loves traditional sports, and I always thought they were so boring. But this was like an esport that was very much treated like a traditional sport. So I was excited to finally be a part of like making wings on Sunday to watch the big game, So I would put it up on my other monitor at work in my editing bay, and all these women, I worked with a lot of women because it was a women's fashion company who were all video editors, and they didn't know what it was. And they're like, what are you watching? I'm like, oh, it's so cool. And I was like so excited to tell them about it. And they were like happy for me, but they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. And they just weren't very interested. And so I realized after a while, like, I really just want to be surrounded by people who love this as much as I do. So I started looking in jobs in esports, and I started with my favorite team, which was the Los Angeles Valiant. And I saw that they were hiring for social media, which wasn't really my forte. I had like 80 followers on Twitter, but I'm like, I want to get into this space. So I applied, and I like used my video editing to, I think, nail the job. So I did that for a year, and I loved it, but I realized that I really, really missed video editing. I wanted to do what I feel like I do best in the space that I love so much. So it was perfect timing when the director of One Up Studios hit me up, and he saw some work that I had posted, and he said he just wanted to talk to me about that work. And it was perfect timing because I really respect like One Up Studios. I really love the content that they make, and just like the effort and time, and like the fact that it is a full-on One Up studio for an esports. Like, we have a studio in the back, they have edit bays, and we like take the time to produce and make all this content, and I loved it, and I just wanted so bad to be a part of it, and it's been amazing. So that's why I came here.
So my story is a little similar. So I graduated from the University of Texas in 2019, and I landed my first job with Gen G, and all of our values aligned. They are very about female empowerment and diversity, and they were getting into the collegiate space, and I absolutely loved working there. My first job there was as a social media manager, so not really exactly my forte, but it was my first venture into esports, and I absolutely loved the company, loved working with the people and everything. So unfortunately, my house flooded back in November with Tropical Storm Imelda. And, I evaluated my choices, and I thought, it's really important for me to move back home to be closer to family. And in esports, if you want to work in esports, you pretty much have to move out to California. That's the hub of esports. And there's not really opportunities in Texas unless you're in Dallas. So luckily, the Houston Outlaws were hiring. They just got a new owner, and they were looking to build up a fire team. And so I applied for the position, and they were moving their entire location to Houston. So I got to be closer to family. And then also, it was a really cool opportunity because I'm from Houston. And when Overwatch League came out, Houston Outlaws was the team I was cheering for. So I got to go home, and now I'm working for the team that kind of started it all for me. So I'm with the Houston Outlaws now, and it's honestly been such a blessing.
Awesome, awesome. For me, obviously, I don't work for an org, so it's a little bit different. But how I even got into, like I said, doing the broadcasting aspect within esports was starting with Cheddar Esports, and even before then, I actually started. My first time broadcasting was with the NBA when they started their esports league, the NBA 2K league, and so I was hosting a show called The Post Up, and that was my first time on camera, which is really funny considering that for me, I was always behind the scenes. So I was, I have experience being a producer, a digital print journalist. I did a lot behind the scenes in the media world, but that was the first time where they were like, "Hey, we need a woman. We need, someone who can join." It was my friend Jeff Eisenband to join him because, unfortunately, and even on the broadcast standpoint, there's not that many women who can really speak to the games and speak to the competitions and everything like that. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And it's crazy to say that, like, I was not, it was just kind of like one of those things where I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I got time. And it ended up like kind of starting my career in that sense. And so from there, and how it works in terms of broadcasting is when you get to a certain point, you're going to have representation or agents. I'm signed to CAA, so after Cheddar Esports fell apart because of a lot of different reasons, my agents, they reached out to Ven and the entire team over there, and we did various different screen tests and chemistry tests. So essentially, chemistry tests are they get a bunch of broadcasters and hosts, and then seeing how well they gel together and how well the show's energy may be. And so I did several of those, and then eventually they selected me, and then I had to be quiet for weeks upon weeks upon weeks until I could. Funny enough, people were like, "Oh, are you going to be part of Ven?" I had to play stupid and say, "I don't know what you're talking about." But the really cool thing is kind of going back to what you guys were saying. A lot of the esports opportunities are in LA. However, I'm New York City based, and it's great that the New York City scene is growing and it's building up, and there's a lot more opportunities that are being established in this area. And especially as someone who has family from New York and family from the projects and stuff like that, it's great that it shows, especially the kids in the inner cities, it's showing them that you can do these things, and you can be part of esports world. You don't have to always move to LA, and there's gonna be more and more opportunities growing moving forward. But I am moving to LA, so I will eventually be over there. So I gotta go because what I just said. Fine. Listen, it's hard times now. You gotta go where you gotta go.
I'm excited to have you here at least. That'll be super nice.
Yes, I'm excited. Of course, I'll hang with all you ladies.
Thank you. It's very kind. I mean, for me, Team Liquid was a top choice because how much they care about their fans. there's something to be said for a team. We're actually hitting 20 years of existence this year. And so there's something to be said about the fact that we have fans that have been loyal from like day one that are still with us. Like they probably have kids now. They probably like, who knows where they are in their lives. And so many people have worked at TL for like years and years and years. Like there's people here that we were trying to plan like 10-year celebrations to like do something fun for them. And I was planning for like 8 years, and they're like, oh no, you should probably plan some like 12, like 15-year stuff because we're going to hit that this or next year. And that kind of loyalty really stuck to me, right? Like that's so cool that people really love this team so much that they're willing to be a part of it for a really long time. So when I was looking, having had to kind of find a job in the COVID times because events don't really happen in COVID. Team Liquid was just kind of the first thing I applied to, and I was really lucky that they really wanted to have me on board with whatever vision I had. So that's why I'm here now, and I'm honestly couldn't be happier. All right, so guys, what was your first tournament or event that you attended in esports? And I'm happy to start with this one because my first one was the one I threw in college. It was in 2010, and it was a 3v3 tournament for League of Legends. And I printed out the posters with the only money I had, and I was sticking them around campus and inviting people. And then Riot somehow found out about it, even though I went to like Florida State University. It was really small, and it caused them to get in touch with me to be one of the first people in their collegiate esports program. So that was my first event, and it gave me kind of a huge taste for doing events further on after that, and I was really excited about it. How about you guys?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in the panel, but my first event was actually MLG Anaheim 2013. I was a senior in high school. I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do. I had actually gotten accepted into one of the top illustration schools within the US, so I thought I was going to do drawing for the rest of my life and art. But after going to this event, I decided that, hey, there is something else I really wanted to pursue. There is something that, like, something so electric about going to an arena for your first time where everyone is acting like how you see on TV for traditional sports. And being a nerd all my life, I didn't get to experience that very much. And being able to find that community where I felt like this was my space spoke, words to me like I needed to do this and get involved. And, since then I went to different kinds of events. I ran my own tournaments, and I decided to broaden my spectrum and follow things more than just League of Legends. And having that kind of experience kind of spark my career has meant, the world to me.
I also was in, well, actually, when I attended San Francisco State University my sophomore year, I tried to look up our like League of Legends or esports club, and there weren't any. So me and like, I talked to someone who wanted to start one, and we ended up being like the founding group for it. So the first events like in college were events that I also helped put on. So it was really like, it was fun. It was great to see all these people I didn't know, but they were all students there who like really liked this game. It was specifically a League of Legends club who loved this game as much as I did, and it was fun to like watch that with them. But I was also very on, like was passing out stuff. I was making sure like the pizza was ready and things like that. So I think the most notable time for me was my first event that I got to attend, which I was living in San Francisco, and since I only watched League, there wasn't much I could go to. I couldn't go to like the arena in LA, but they did have, I really want to say it was 2016 World's Group Stage in San Francisco on my birthday. So I went, and it like blew my face off. There's all these people and lights and the teams that I watch all the time, and I like could not believe how many people like were there to support this, and it was like amazing. I really was just like, I want to put on an event like this for SS State, and yeah, it really legitimized it for me. Even though I could see it on the stream, like just being there, I was like, wow. And I remember weirdly, the first thing I thought is like, I really want my parents to go with me to this, because I talk all the time about how much I love esports, and I'm like, if they could see this, there is like no denying how huge this thing is, So it really impacted me.
I would have to say my most impactful tournament or event that happened is probably when I entered esports. I was straight out of college. I moved directly to LA like a week later. The week after that, I was on my first event at CDL Anaheim. And at the time, Gen G had a Call of Duty team. And what was really cool about this event is, it was 2 hours away. It was a 2-hour drive. And everyone from Gen G was there cheering on our team. We had our Apex players there. We had our Fortnite players there. We had the majority of Gen G staff there just cheering on our guys. And we actually made it all the way up to grand finals, and we got second place. And at the time, I didn't know anything anything about Call of Duty. I was learning on the fly. I was doing social media. I was asking our coach, what is this terminology? I have to tweet about this. And so it was just such a supportive and enlightening and probably one of the most memorable events of my entire career, because that was my first event I was covering in esports. And it was just amazing to see the amount of support that an entire team can give to one of their teams that's playing.
And for me, in terms of attending an esports event IRL, I was a little bit of a late bloomer just because, like I said, I was working in other industries beforehand. And during high school and college, I played soccer at a very competitive level. So I didn't really have a life except go to school and train and, work to get that pre education by playing soccer at UK. But the event that I would say transformed and changed my life was it was Red Bull Conquest, and I forget what year, but it was Red Bull Conquest. It was in Washington D.C. And what was transformative about that experience was that one, that's kind of the beginning of when I started the journalism coverage of esports instead of just being a spectator. And another reason why it was transformative was that's the moment that I met my friend Amanda Stevens, and then I also met my friend Brandon, who used to be a producer at Cheddar Esports, and they honestly took me under their wings and really just like broke certain things down that I didn't really understand or know from behind the scenes. Especially when you're watching competition, you're watching certain aspects. Viewing it as a spectator is a lot different than when you work in media or behind the scenes. There's just some additional information that you're more privy to and aware of. And so they really just helped me and guided me and really just sat down and took the time to talk to me. And that honestly was the part of the start of my journey within this space from a broadcasting standpoint. So, and even to this day, I always give props to Amanda being one of the first friends in the scene, and also Brandon as well. And so that was a very transformative moment, and honestly, one of my favorite moments that kind of started off the journey that I have right now.
That's awesome. And it's really cool. Amanda is a great part of the scene, I think, especially out in New York. Does a lot of good work there. So shout out to Amanda if you get to watch this. I was so lucky enough to be on a different panel with her. So hey. Cool. Well, with that said, let's kind of get more into issues we faced. So, I mean, one of the main reasons we're having this panel is we are all women. We all have probably faced something or other, or maybe not getting taken seriously. Maybe there's other types of issues. And I think it's important that we as women talk about kind of how we've navigated these things, how we've gotten through it, regardless of like what has happened. And so have you guys ever felt different being treated as women? Is there some moment where you're like, wait, that's not right, either favoritism or in a negative sense? And if so, do you want to elaborate on it?
I have, kind of a story. It was the first one that it wasn't only like gaming related, but it was also the first time I ever felt like this happened to me. When my first job ever was an ice cream scooper at Cold Stone Creamery. I still know all the menu items by heart. And right next door was a GameStop, and the manager there would come in and get the same banana strawberry smoothie. And so I would talk to him and be like, oh, hey, like GameStop, I love GameStop, And I was saying like all these games that I played, which at the time wasn't like competitive online games. They were all like console games. And he's like, yeah, you know what? You should come apply. Like, we need to hire someone. I was like, oh, okay. And it was me and I forget his name. I want to say it was Brandon. Brandon, where I was scooping ice cream that day, and he's like, oh, you know what? I would love to work at GameStop too. And so he's like, yeah, you should both come apply. So we did, and I got the job and he didn't. And they were hiring too. And I got the job and he didn't. And I felt bad, but whatever. I didn't say anything about it. And he just randomly, while we were just working alone one day, was like, you only got that GameStop job because you're eye candy, right? And I was like, and I'm like 16 years old, and I didn't know what to say. I was so shocked, and it was so confrontational too. And he was obviously very hurt. He didn't get the job, but I also was just like, I don't even remember what I said, but I remember I just was like, whatever, dude, he's just mad. He's butthurt. And when I got home, I kind of had this like fear of like, whether or not he had said that, like, I really, really hope that was not the reason, right? Knowing my boss after working, I only worked there for like a year, but he was a sweet guy, and I really, really genuinely believe he hired me because I play games and I know them well, and I'm good with people and I can talk to them about it. But that like any future job in gaming in the future, any job anywhere, I'm just like, that never occurred to me that could be a reason why I'm hired at least above someone else. And it kind of instilled that first fear in me, like, wow, like maybe this really is a thing. So yeah, I'd say that was the very first time. Rude.
Super rude. Yeah, for me personally, I think my first encounter with this was actually in collegiate esports. So for a little bit of background, I founded my own chapter over at UC Riverside, my alma mater, in 2014 as a freshman, and I served as president for 4 years. And I think there was a lot of small microaggressions in my experience there as a woman in leadership. The organization itself was very small at first because we were just getting started and there was a lot of women getting involved. And as the club grew, I felt that there was certain terminologies that people were using to describe me that felt a little bit gendered, right? Like the B word, or like, oh, you're bossy, you're intimidating because you're a woman in leadership. And it felt a little bit microaggressive. And I think that the reason why at that time was that, as the only woman within this organization for many years and also the president, a lot of people felt like I didn't deserve it because they said things like, I heard behind my back, or, even in conversation, like, oh, you won because you're a pretty girl, or you're won because you're Asian, or things like that. And it's weird because it as Heather mentioned, it instills self-doubt, and that's the whole point of them saying that in the first place, right? Is to kind of tear you down slowly. And I think that what I learned really from that experience is that, like, people are going to say things, usually it comes from a place of insecurity, or they just haven't seen you do your thing. I worked really hard, and at that time I thought the solution was to work 120% harder to prove them wrong. And the reality is that shouldn't be it either. That's toxic as well. What you really should do is do your best for yourself and for the things that you believe in, not for the people that are your quote unquote haters. So that was my life lesson.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as a broadcaster, my face is always out there. So constantly as a woman, typically, we'll be judged based off of our appearance at times, and more so than what we actually say. And it's unfortunate that, like, even when you're doing broadcasting, like, you have to be very aware of, like, your own aesthetics and how you present yourself. But there is that aspect of the, oh, being pretty or not being feminine enough, or just certain aspects like that that the men don't get, right? The men could be scruffy and look a certain way, but they're not judged on, like, oh, he's handsome or he's not. Like, it's never that case. So that's one aspect that I deal with. And then another one too that I deal with, and even more specifically as a Black and Latin woman, is that there are times where people assume that, like, if I'm speaking up about something, especially when it comes to social injustices or stuff like that, it's just more like, or creating more opportunities for underserved communities within esports. They always are like, for some people, they'll be like, oh, and when they say they mean Black people, and me specifically as a Black woman, they want special treatment. Or she thinks that she should have this, or other Black people should get this, or other Black women should get this because special treatment. And it's not the case, right? And so there's this dynamic of me not only being a woman, but that layer of me being Black on top of it, that also kind of adds to the comments, right? Obviously, everything that you guys echoed, I get the similar things, but then on top of that too, me being Black is another aspect where people are making comments. And it's hard too, because as a broadcaster, when we're doing the broadcast work, we see all the comments, we see everything, right? And we can't really, like, stop a broadcast because it's like, oh, okay, stop it, because they're saying this about me being a woman, they're saying that I'm not good enough, or I don't know what I'm talking about, like all these different things, right? And then it's a different level of standards that we get as women in broadcasting. We have to be 120 times better, and then me being also a Black woman, I have to be 150 times better than everyone else, while there is mediocrity within media, when it comes to esports. I mean, I can definitely say that. So there's always this extra level of pressure of, like, not being wrong and all these things that we just don't have the privilege of being able to do that some of our counterparts are. So it's a very multi-layered thing that I deal with, and just overall people either assessing that like I shouldn't have gotten opportunities because I'm a woman, or that I'm newer compared to others, or that I expect or think that other Black women or other women should get special treatment over others. So it's a lot of stuff I've had said to me during my broadcast tenure.
I'm so sorry about that. That's garbage, frankly.
Yeah, but you know, it's like if it's not that, it is the N word. It is something, and it sucks. But it's like I've been dealing with this all my life, and so it's just like me learning to understand that it's less about me and it's more so a projection of how they feel and what they think, and it's not me. So I've learned it over time as I've gotten older.
Thank you for sharing. It's definitely a lot. But yeah, when it comes to special treatment, especially as a minority, especially as those things, like there's always things that like people don't think of that we have to take into account as women here in this particular scenario of the panel. But for me, something that you touched on, Erin, is appearances. There was a event I did at the start of my career back in 2015 or 16. Not the start, maybe like the start-ish. And the owners of the event asked me to put on a swimsuit at some point because we were at a mansion, etc. It wasn't just me; it was another woman that was with me. But we were the only ones that asked at all, because they had a jacuzzi, and all the players of the teams wanted to come out and sit in jacuzzi, and so they were like, "We'll buy it for you. Go put on a swimsuit." And we were like, no. One, both of us had boyfriends at the time, and two, it was like a really uncomfortable question. There were no other women there. There was one other woman there. They didn't ask her. It just, the whole situation felt so odd. It was this special treatment moment that you've never wanted, right? You don't want to be singled out to put on a swimsuit and go sit down in a bathtub or a jacuzzi with all these other men. And the woman in question actually has the picture up on her profile during the Me Too allegations, and she's okay with me saying it, Bianca Baymax, and she, you can see how uncomfortable she is. I think she was 19 in the photo, and I was like in my younger 20s. And I actually said no. I sat down. It was like, absolutely not. One, not doing this. Two, you guys are taking pictures. It's super weird. But the special treatment, or the sort of almost like sexualization of us as we just appear or exist, like, oh, you're a girl, you're getting this treatment for a girl, you're eye candy, you're this, you're that, is something that I feel like is prevalent in a sort of insidious way. That was an overt example, but Erin, you're like on broadcast and you're talking and you just see these comments coming through, right? You're getting it in different smaller ways, you're getting it through comments. And so special treatment isn't necessarily a good thing, even if sometimes it might get you an opportunity, even if sometimes it might get you a free swimsuit. It's not necessarily a good thing at all.
Yeah, so two examples I really wanted to bring up is, moving to LA, I was new to the industry. I really wanted to get to know people. I don't really know anyone in LA. So, networking was really big for me, setting up 30-minute calls or just reaching out to people. And a lot of what I was getting was people taking these networking opportunities that I was reaching out for as dates. And that was really frustrating because I'm new here. I'm trying to establish my professional footprint and meet more people and make those professional relationships. And it somehow turned into, oh, this is a date, let me buy your food. Like, no, I want to grow a professional relationship. This is not the case. And then two, being able to go to these esports events, which is huge for networking and building your professional relationships, and being told, oh, whose girlfriend are you? That's really frustrating. And, I grinded to be here, same with everyone else. So those are two of my experiences that I've received since being in esports. And I've only been here for a year. So I can't imagine some of the people that have been here for more years than I have and have experienced the same thing.
That leads me actually into the next point, which are common issues. Are there issues that you've commonly faced? I'm often running an event. I'm often the booth person. I'm often doing the tech behind the scenes. And I always get asked, are you the girlfriend? Or do you even like this game? Do you even watch this? And those sort of questions that are like, you can't possibly be a fan. You can't possibly be interested in this. You probably don't know what this is. If you do know, it's because your boyfriend taught you. And I get that from all around. It could be from the people that made the game, which I've had happen to me before. It could be from pro players players themselves, all the way up to like the technical people that are working under or around me. And it makes you feel so invalidated, right? Like everybody in this call has said at some point, like, I work so hard to be here. Well, we work so hard to be here, and for them to question us because they think a man has taught us this, or we're just doing this because it gets us viewers or something. I don't stream, so that kind of thing was always so frustrating. So that is the most commonly faced issue for me, is I don't get taken seriously. How about you guys?
I've experienced like that multiple times. I remember there was one time I was so irritated. This guy came to like fix something in our bathroom, and I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and we're both big gamers. And my setup is much more impressive than his. And so when he came downstairs and I asked like how everything was, he's like, "Yeah, it was great." He's like, "By the way, like your boyfriend's gaming setup is so sick." I was like, "Oh, thanks, yeah." And he's like, "Yeah," and then he like described all the stuff. I was like, "Oh no, that's my desk." And he didn't even try to hide how shocked he was. He's like, "Oh, that was the one on the left?" I was like, "Yeah, that's mine." And he's like, "Wow, that's amazing. Wow, you have a great setup." I was like, "Thanks." I was like very irritated at that point. I'm like, "Why are you so shocked? And why are you not even trying to hide how shocked you are?" And it reminded me, Sarah's story reminded me of a case too. And I don't know if Sabrina was standing next to me at the time, but she was there. We went to one of the events, California Cup, where it's San Francisco Shock versus LA Valiant. And we were standing behind the players. I was covering it because I'm social media. So I'm filming the players signing things, and they're like going through a line. And Sabrina was running the entire event. And some guy, he was like a much older guy. He like could have been my dad.
He's a father.
Yeah.
What's his son?
Yeah. And he's like walking through the line, and we're standing behind him. And he's like talking to the players. And he looks it up, and he straight up asks us like, "Oh, are you guys the cheerleaders?" And I had no idea. I was so shocked. I was like, "No." And then he just walked away. And we looked at each other like, what on earth kind of question is that? And it's just so like that's what we were there for. That's what we were standing next to the players while they were getting signed, is because we were cheerleaders. Like he's Gary from Pokemon. Like it's very frustrating. And like experiences like that, I feel like are kind of extreme, because I'm still just shocked that people have audacity like that. But there's also just minor things. Like one thing that I've noticed like later, after it's happened, is when I'm being mansplained to. And I feel like I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt a lot. And so I usually am like justifying in my brain, like, no, maybe it's because I'm like the youngest or something, which isn't always the case. Or like maybe it's because I'm the newest employee, which wasn't always the case. But there are times where I was like, there are like this and this reasons where I think the only reason that this was being over explained when I very much knew what they were talking about is because I'm a woman. You just assumed that I didn't know that thing. And that's so frustrating. Like no one wants to spend 5 minutes listening to an explanation that you already know, and it's only to you because you're a woman. And it happens way more often than I realized until I realized it.
I definitely second that. That was something on my list, is mansplaining. I have a lot of people mansplain Overwatch to me, and I'm like, do you realize I work in this game? I have to understand this game. So that's very frustrating. And then also not having my ideas being taken seriously, especially for my age. I'm 23, I'm new to the scene, but just because I'm young and I'm a woman doesn't mean I'm not educated, and constantly looking at what other orgs and other teams are doing and kind of replicating, what could we do instead? Both of those things are very, very frustrating, as well as, I started streaming, and you constantly get comments of like, the only reason you get viewers is because you're pretty or you're a girl. And that's very frustrating, because it's like, no, it's because, I'm entertaining, I'm good at the game. Like, it's not just because I'm a girl. So those are very frustrating issues that I face.
Yeah, I think absolutely. There's a sense that a lot of people have this idea that like there's just like this immense privilege of being a woman in this space. And I'm not going to lie, like some people are just dumb. I mean, I really want to say that in a colloquial way, but for real though, there is like a sense that like there's this like immense sense of privilege as a woman, and some people, they're handed this thing, and they have to understand, like, are you going to take this to your advantage or not? And I think here, actually, let me start this over. Can I start this over? My point is, okay, so basically in the world of esports, there's a lot of people who might not be ingrained in it and think that women coming into the space have this immense sense of privilege. But the reality is there's so many things that are barricades for people to even enter this space. This sense of feeling like you're attention seeking, or that you're put into these boxes and labels that don't exist, that are completely made up. And that is such a facade that makes people not want to join. Like, they don't feel comfortable, they can't be themselves. And that is not gaming. Gaming is for all kinds of people, whether you're a woman, and be, ethnicity, race, it doesn't matter. You're a gamer. And like, I don't understand why this has become a thing, but I know that it's getting better over time, thankfully. I just there's so many issues that a lot of women this panel have spoke about that I've faced, and I know a lot of other people in this scene have faced, that I'm just so frustrated about. And I'm always constantly trying to find a solution.
Yeah, I also think that like this is something, I mean, this was something I struggled with a lot more when I was younger, but as you get older, you just don't give a lot of craps about certain things anymore. And For me it's always this balance of speaking up, especially for when it's right. Speaking up in terms of my perspective, and but also having that balance, because if you're too passionate, you're emotional. And a man could be just as passionate. A guy could literally go around and flip the table and they're like, "Oh, wow, he has tenacity." It's like, so what? So he has tenacity and I'm emotional? Like, and so it's understanding that balance of when to speak up, and speak up for what's right, and understanding that some people may view it as you being emotional, but also at the same time it's like I'm 28, I'm getting closer to 30, and I just don't have time for certain things anymore. And I it's not that like I ever want to be viewed in terms of talent being problematic or difficult, but you understand later on it's not about being viewed problematic and being difficult. It's about ensuring your well-being, ensuring that you are safe, ensuring that you are good. And if people do not understand that, then they're not worth working for or with. And so that was something I've had to learn. And I know pretty much all of you guys know, like, I'm very straightforward and blunt, and I say what's on my mind. And that the problem is, I lived in New York too long, and I was raised by a New Yorker, so that's just like the mindset of everything, right? But I've also had to learn how to navigate in terms of my words and how to convey certain things, even if it's very blunt, conveying it in the right way, whether it's on the broadcast or whether it's in a business meeting or anything. Another issue is uh, people wanting to sneakily pay me less as a woman compared to the men. And without them even realizing that I know what the previous price was, and then they'll try and lower it when it comes to me. And so, but luckily, because I have agents, I let them handle it and be the bad guys, and I just smile. But those are some of the things that I've had to navigate and deal with. What I've realized over time, that like, if some of the biggest and greatest businesswomen have been called the B word at some time. And you're gonna eventually get that at some point. It's kind of like a rite of passage. I hate to say, but it's, you can't always be viewed as nice. Like, you just gotta always stand up for what you believe in and what you think is right. And if people don't want to be understanding, then listen, you don't have to work for them. There's a lot more opportunities, and yeah, those are some of the stuff that I've had to deal with a lot.
Thank you guys for sharing. And it sounds like we have a lot of pretty similar issues across the board. But, having been in esports for some time, or even newer, do you feel like it's improved? Do you think things have gotten better for us as women?
For me, I kind of feel this like one step forward, two steps back kind of like frustration. Like, there are times where I do feel like it's getting better. Like, you see representation. Like, I remember the Hearthstone world champion, like the last world champion was a woman, and I thought that was so awesome, and that representation there was amazing. And then this very insulting E3 article comes out about games that women play, and it's just, things like that. Like, there's so many examples I don't want to give exposure to, but like, that trailer that came out for that game, Gamer Girl, that is the most, I feel like that just brought us back like at least 3 steps, because like, misses like that are just so important to not do. Like, that, it just, like, all the work I feel like that we're putting into by like not only just speaking in these panels, but so much more than that, like making a footprint on this, like in this space, and saying we're here and look at the moves we're making, and then to still have stuff like this come out, like, it's kind of this like, I thought we moved past stuff like this, guys. Like, who greenlit this? Like, and at the same time, it gives me, and like I feel like women in the space, a sense of responsibility to be like, do not let this be greenlit. Like, put a woman in the room and you will not make like that huge mistake that got bad reception. It doesn't look good on them, you know? So they didn't want that either in the end. And I think it's just so important to have, like, I don't know any woman that would say yes to that, you know? So having us there is really important, and having more women in the space really does make an impact. And so we don't have those 3 steps back see the light of day.
Yeah, I mean, again, from my first experience in esports, there was a lack of women participating because I felt like they were a little bit afraid. There was gatekeeping happening, and those issues are have diminished over time, thankfully, since those 7 years have passed. But at the same time, I see a lot of issues still occurring to this day at a different kind of category. Like, I'm seeing a lot of women speak out and feel comfortable speaking out on social media and on events, but at the same time, I see numerous hate comments with people who, again, like bringing back to like Erin's statement a little bit earlier in the panel, like, oh, you want this, like you're getting special treatment, you're getting you want extras, and that's not the case. That's not what they're asking for. They're asking to be looked at as equal, and instead, there's people, and some are women as well, claiming that, like, well, you're asking for attention, you're doing this because you want money or fame or things like that. And that's not what people do this for. If they wanted that, they wouldn't be in this industry, to be honest. It's quite the opposite. It's a lot of hard work that takes to make it in esports. And I hope that over time, people come to realization that bigotry is not allowed within this kind of space. It's always, strived, at least set to say that it's been inclusive. And I think that, people need to make strides in different ways. We can't let other women in this space get bullied out by, again, the quote unquote haters. Like, let's call that out. Let's not be afraid of, speaking our voices and being able to make change, because from my personal experience, I would kind of just let it happen. If people were mean to me, I would just let it happen because I didn't know the correct way to respond. And what I've learned over the years is that you need to really stick up, because if you stick up for yourself, you're sticking up for, you know, how many other people in the space as well that are similar to you. So,
Yeah. I also think that um it's definitely improving and getting better in this sense of we also are seeing women that are getting into CEO and higher up positions, whether at Evil Geniuses or FlyQuest or just in other spaces as well, the Story Mob, and I think that's awesome that we're seeing that, and by having more women in these positions and positions of I would say power in the sense that they are decision makers, it's definitely helping to change and kind of work towards removing the toxicity that's in the scene, but then also providing different perspectives as well. And I think also in addition to that, we're seeing not just women, but we're seeing people who traditionally didn't grow up within the esports or scene or had jobs within the esports scene that are coming into the fold that are giving some different angles that are making the scene better in different and unique ways. And so I think that it's good in terms of that, but there's always room for improvement, right? And especially for, I'm a big advocate of this and I talk about it all this time, how like we have to realize like there are a lot of obstacles in esports. Not everyone can afford a PC. I grew up as a console gamer because I couldn't have a PC, right? It's expensive to be in esports. It can be expensive. And so but that's why it's been great just to see certain organizations that are doing things to help not only utilize gaming as a way to help encourage more women in this space, but also to help people in the underserved communities. Every single one of your guys' organizations is having some sort of initiative to help with that. And even like for example with Gen G, how they're doing scholarships for my alma mater, I think that's awesome. And so, but I think that like there's a lot more that can be done, and I think that we can do even a better job, especially when it comes to making women more comfortable in space. And I think that it also starts with us actually developing a talent development process, and a development process. I don't think we quite have that in esports in some capacity. So I'm hoping that eventually, with that and the pathway channels being made from the college scene to here and other career paths, that is going to improve as we go.
I definitely second those points. Seeing these women come into leadership positions definitely changes all of the organization downward. You're seeing more esports organizations take on diversity initiatives and give resources towards those initiatives. And then also instilling that diversity is a pillar of their values as an organization. I think that's very, very important. I would say it's getting better on that side, but also I would say it's not getting better because you're seeing still that toxicity, and we need to be able to say no. It's like Sabrina said, we need to call that out and say that's not okay. I want to bring up an example of the Call of Duty creator code. We saw a few days ago that pro players aren't getting these creator codes, whereas some creators that are women are getting these codes, and they're getting harassment. They're getting comments that are like, you only got the code because you're a woman. And that can't be the case anymore. We need to call that out, and we need to be firm in that, just because I'm a woman, I'm not getting the special treatment. I am grinding this game just like everyone else. So, I think it's getting better for women overall, but it's like Heather said, it kind of feels like one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah, agree with that overall sentiment. One step forward, two steps back. I mean, some of the allegations that are coming out are things that some people have known about for years and years and never would have said anything until now, right? It's crazy to be that some women are finally have the strength and or whatever it may have taken, whatever may have happened to have come out with their stories and to say something, and people are supporting them. That's crazy. Like I remember thinking, like, when some of these women first started coming out, the Me Too allegation weekend when it all started happening, that they were just going to get like bombasted, but it was filled with love and support and openness. And I don't think we would have seen that 5 or 6 years ago. I honestly don't think so. Like, people would have been like, you're just trying to ruin Blank's career. You're just trying to do this. You're just trying to do that. And there's still, the anime avies that are just going to say whatever crazy thing they can say. But it's nice to see that there's so many more women and people in the space that are just like, no, like, I'm saying my story. There is nothing else to it. This is my story. This is what happened. And it's setting up regulations. It's setting up precedents. I mean, look at Ubisoft. They started these allegations with some like weak statement on black and white, and they're, whatever. And now they're actually doing a lot more. They actually have a whole separate HR situation. They're hiring more. They fired a lot of people that just weren't good for the situation. And change is happening. Is it slow? Yes. Will we see a lot of changes in our time? Can happen. I'm looking forward to it. I want to make this better for the women that come after this, like the girls that are watching this that are in college or in high school and are looking into getting into this, and they see women representing them. I want them to have a really good time here. So on to the final topic is solutions. How do we get more women into esports? How do we get more people into panels with us and be able to discuss things like this more openly and candidly with a lot of other women as part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step is representation, which is what we're all doing here today. Being able to kind of speak on this panel first off has been a really amazing experience. And I think that what means the most when I do educational panels like this is being able to at least even get one person to say like, hey, I can be like them. I could do more. I could, shoot for the stars. And I know that when I was getting started my esports career, it would have meant the world to me to see that there was a path. It felt scary because I didn't have women role models in esports, at that time. I was already impressed to see Trisha actually was a professional player at that time in StarCraft. And at that MLG Anaheim 2013, my friends were like, "Oh, there's a woman who's like," well, they said female because they were 16-year-old boys at the time. But there's a female like StarCraft player. I gotta meet her. Not, and they again, in problematic sense, like thought of it, as like, oh, it's a girl like that. But for me, sitting next to them, hearing those words and seeing her play, I thought, this is possible. This is real, and getting more and more into the scene, I've realized that what really inspired me was seeing other people do it. And what I can do at the very least is show that it's possible.
Yeah, I definitely second that. I think like being able to like there are women in the space, right? Like there are like quite a few women in the space. There can always be more, and there needs to be more, but there are women, and I think like women to come out and say, I am here in the space. Look at what I did for this org. I did this event that everyone liked, or I made this content that everyone enjoyed, or this spawned from the seed that I planted in my org. Like those things exist. And I think just, yeah, like being able to expose those and having young women like who are just entering like esports or even just college, at a college level, I started doing stuff like this. Seeing the women that are here, it definitely is inspiring. And like, I too like didn't have a lot of women role models. There was one other woman in the entire club, and we were both in the like leadership. She was treasurer, and I did like the marketing, media, content. And you know, it was just the two of us, and it felt like it was the two of us against the world. And knowing that there are women like you, women, and so many women that I've worked with and seen and talked to that have done amazing things. I think people just need to see that and see where like those seeds are from. So it is really inspiring because like we like cannot wait for you women who are interested in getting the esports to get here, and we can't wait to work with you, and it's going to be awesome, and just work toward it because we're waiting for you to get here. And I think I can't really promise you that it's going to be easy. I would love to make a better esports world for you, but I would love your help in making that easier for the next generation of women, or the next, or the next.
Yeah, it's super exciting time we're in, and like you said, just to see all of us and to see other women in this space is great. I also think that we as an industry need to do a better job tapping into areas that typically aren't don't really have the same opportunities as certain regions like Los Angeles and others. Like there are very talented people at in different inner cities. There's some talented people in the Midwest. There are talented people who go to HBCUs, and we shouldn't just focus in on the big universities. We should also be focusing on the smaller universities as well. I think that when you diversify the reach, we diversify the talent, and we diversify the women that can be entering to this space. And I think that is super crucial. And so, I think that, and it's happening, right? Every single org has been doing outreach programs and outreach initiatives. But I'm always a person, I'm very positive, but I'm always like, we can do more. We can figure out how to do more. And it's been great. I mean, Sabrina, when you guys were doing the resume thing, I thought that was awesome. Like there are so many students who are really good, and there's some people who are really good, but they may not know how to set up their resume. There may be talented broadcasters that just don't know how to set up the right reel. So, it's obviously it's partly everyone's job to kind of, if you're interested, like work hard and find a way to enter in. But it's also our responsibility as people in the industry to help those learn certain basic skill sets, or learn certain skill sets so that they can refine their talent, and then show what they got, and get the opportunity to show what they got as well. And so it's that fine balance of us having to do these outreach and also provide people information that they may not have or know where to start or where to get it. So, but it's happening. I'm excited for it. And I'm also excited for like honestly, if you're a woman, you're watching this, reach out to one of us too. That's another thing too. People in esports
100%.
are more accessible than they are in any other industry. So always don't be afraid to reach out to us as well.
That's
DMs are
definitely
open.
what I'm trying to do, be an open book, be that person that people can reach out to and be approachable. These women that are in collegiate, they don't know how to get involved, and being that person that can help them get involved is definitely very important. And also, like Sabrina said, sharing our knowledge, being on these panels, speaking on these panels, and being approachable, being the people that can help inspire other women to enter the industry is honestly very rewarding, and something that I look forward to doing more of these panels in the future. And then also specifically teaching, how do you network in this space? And then also, how do you network virtually now that everything's going to a virtual landscape in COVID, and making those meaningful and important relationships instead of just like, oh, I'm going to talk to you for 30 minutes. No, like do the follow up, like build those relationships with other people that are working in esports, because ultimately, esports is a very small industry, and you're going to run into people several times, whether it's at one org or a next. You're going to see the same people over and over again. And then also, something that I'm constantly doing to get more women involved in esports is when there is a job posting going up, I'm automatically posting in my women in gaming, women in esports communities and discords. And it's like, hey, this job is posted for Ubisoft or the Outlaws or some company, like come apply. Like I can connect you to the right people. I'm constantly looking for those opportunities to reach out to more women that are interested in getting in the space, and kind of like hyping them up to apply for that job. So, I want to see more women in the space, and we are getting there. And also, looking to inspire more women to approach this industry.
I love that. This is great. And honestly, speaking of Discords, I have a ton of different Discords. Feel free to join. There's one for safety in case you go to an event and you want other women to reach out to. That there's a ton of women in there who will be able to help you, or at least know the resources that are needed. Some with training, actually, which is really great. There's also a Discord where we just talk about makeup for women that work in the industry, about fashion, about lingerie, just everything in there, just for fun, just something different. And then I'm even part of a community that's more focused on the community side called the Gamers. And all the women that are involved in that community just love gaming, but they're also mothers, they're also this, they're also that. And they're so multifaceted because being a woman is such a diverse experience, right? It's not just necessarily we like esports, period, that's it. We are multifaceted people. There's a lot more to us, and I love that, and I love having communities centered around those different topics. So absolutely agree with y'all. We are actually pretty short on time, so I'm just going to go to the last question, and I'm going to start it. What orgs are doing it right? And I'm not just saying this because both two people are in these orgs. First off, Ven is doing a lot of amazing things and has such a diverse cast of talent that you see constantly in front of you. There's you, there's Jimmy Wong, there's Jigon. I'm always seeing a bunch of different people up there. Emily has the coolest hair ever on the planet. I'm so jealous. I love what's going on there. And then at EG, the stance for diversity is so strong. You can see there's a commitment to it, and it's unwavering, and nothing people can say, fans, anime avies, etc., will stop everyone. So those are two orgs I definitely think are doing the right thing in different ways of showing inclusivity, and I love that. What about y'all? What do you think?
Sarah can talk a little bit more about this, but I've been really impressed with what Gen G has been doing actually with their Women in Gaming initiative. I find it very interesting what they've been doing because they've been able to link partners within their campaigns, therefore strengthening it and creating more programs. I actually was on a panel just yesterday with Sarah, and she talked a little bit more about it, so I'll let her go into the details, but that is one organization that I think has been killing it in terms of that.
Yeah, so I would have to say, hands down, Gen G has been some of the leading just trailblazers of female empowerment initiatives and diversity initiatives, and then also getting into the collegiate scene more. So specifically, Gen G and Bumble have partnered together to further this female empowerment initiative. They sponsor their female Fortnite team. They empower their female content creators. They are making waves in saying, this toxicity is not okay. And they are 100% backing their supporters and content creators there. And then also, I would have to say that Gen G is doing amazing things with their collegiate partners. So Gen G and EMU actually started a Gamer Girls Getting It Done summer camp, where they held a virtual summer camp in Discord, and they had players from their Fortnite team, from their team Bumble, and their content creators come and speak to these ladies, as well as some of their business staff, and educate these young women on how to get into esports, how to become a professional player, how to become that content creator, and kind of the obstacles that they're facing as women coming into this scene. I also want to highlight, FlyQuest is coming out with a lot of women's apparel. And, I think apparel isn't something we necessarily think about a lot, but I think it brings women to an even playing field of men. It's not just one size fits all unisex. It's actually incorporating women into the equation. And I think that's really important. And then last, I want to highlight Dignitas. They just launched their Faye initiative, which is a community in their own Discord. And it's promoting education, social, and competitive resources to more of a women in gaming community. So I'm really excited to see what develops there and exactly what campaigns they have to kick off.
I was going to say, Alexa, stop. Sorry. Anyway, I was going to also say Gen Z, and I'm so glad you highlighted everything, because I didn't know about the Discord, and it's just amazing thing. Look at Gen G, there's no denying the women representation there, and I love that. But I also wanted to mention FlyQuest. Quick anecdote is when I worked at Valiant, my boss, who is a male or who is a man, saw that they came out with the athletic clothing wear for women, like a sports bra, and he was so impressed by that, and he loved it, and he wanted to do something like that for like the org he was at. And I think just seeing that spark of inspiration just for some small, like a small like bit of representation, like this piece of apparel that is for women, inspired like a man at the company to want to do more. And I think like those things just add up, and it really like hopefully inspires like all these other orgs to do the same thing. And if you are part of an org that you feel like can be doing more, um, say so. Say so, and tell your org like, I think we could be doing more. Look at what this org is doing and look how well it is. Like, if you think you could do it better, like do it. Like, I think speaking up within the org and making your voice heard within will definitely like spark change.
Yeah, 100%. And also, you even if you're not in the org, you can also have those conversations behind the scenes about what can be better and what can be done. I mean, I definitely have had conversations with various different friends and people from all different orgs about what can be better. And so this one organization that I'm bringing up, obviously they're not as big as all of your guys' organizations, but they've been doing a really, really good job. So there's this org, they're called Community. They're a nonprofit that works to increase participation in esports through STEM and development. And they've been doing things like raising money to provide laptops through K through 12, as well as HBCU students, and also K through 12 in the low income areas to get them laptops to continue their education. They recently are partnering with Twitch to create an actual HBCU esports league, and they've also been utilizing their connections and what they have to work with women and also Black women within the scene. They've been doing some stuff with me, WNBA player Ariel Powers, and a few others. So they've been really focusing on certain cities and certain areas like that don't get as much attention and love. And they also work with Access Replay in Atlanta. And so they've been doing a lot of tremendous things in terms of providing more opportunities, education, and creating a program that helps the youth not only just get into esports, but also give them the necessary skill sets to thrive in life. And so for me, that's the biggest thing. It's great that we can get more people in esports, but the most important thing is that we help give them the necessary tools and information and skill sets so they can just thrive in life, period.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for your opinions. Any last thoughts before we kind of end this panel? Anything that we want to bring up, maybe think about?
Yeah, I want to say that like we've mentioned a lot of organizations that have been doing good, and I think that over time we've seen a lot more organizations feel free to feel free to participate in these kinds of topics. And it's important for the fans and I think the community to show their support for these organizations, because I know, from a lens of a organization or a person, that it's hard. It's hard to make those posts and see the responses because some of them are just not as great as we should. And it's I've taken it upon myself to you know participate in these communities and make sure people feel supported, and it takes a lot of effort and time. So make sure to appreciate those kinds of things and be genuine supporters within our community to make this greater, bigger, and better for the longevity of esports and, to keep us all employed.
Yeah, my last thing too is for those who are watching, you don't have to figure out what you want to do in life and everything right away, especially in your 20s. Your 20s are meant for you to discover different passions, different interests, and everything. And let me just let you know, even when you get closer to your 30s or in your 30s, and you may still not know, and that's okay. And then also, there's just a fun bit. Just to let all the women who are watching, if you're going through anything and if you are dealing with confidence or anything like that, let me just tell you, when you get closer to your 30s, oh, that changes. Like your 30s and getting close to your 30s are pretty much the best years of your life as a woman. So don't worry, things will get better later on. So you don't have to have everything figured out all at once.
Yeah, and just as a final note, all of us, we've said this before, but all of us are on social, all of us are pretty responsive. Like, everybody's here because they want to help other women. We want to do something to make this better. So if you're a younger woman or somebody who's interested in esports and wants to reach out, absolutely feel free. Super open to the conversation. We're all here. All of our Twitters were listed earlier in the panel when we each gave our introductions, but we're all here for you. So again, thank you everyone so much for watching. I'm really happy that we had this panel. It was super exciting to kind of have this panel with everyone here. And thank you so much. I really appreciate you all being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes.